Welcome to Modern Management of the Older Adult, brought to you by the Institute of Clinical Excellence.
Daily Show. My name is Dr. Jeff Musgrave, Doctor of Physical Therapy. It is Wednesday, so it's all things Jerry on ice. I came across a really interesting article that I think will benefit many people because we're seeing increasing rates of mild cognitive impairment in the U.S. and really across the world. So I found this study titled Identifying Exercise Interventions That May Slow the Progression of Cognitive Decline in Older Adults with Mild Cognitive Impairment, a scoping review. So this used a lot of the same methodology that you would see for a systematic review and meta-analyses. And this was an international study. So in this study, they included 10 randomized controlled trials. Participants were average age over 50 years old with mild cognitive impairment. This included 1,066 subjects. They used a wide variety of interventions to really test out what is the best at slowing mild cognitive impairment with just looking at exercise. So the different types of intervention, we had aerobic training only, resistance training only, we had Tai Chi, we had dance, and we had combined aerobic and resistance training. So what I found interesting about this was a lot of the outcome measures that we use for mild cognitive impairment. In general, we're focused on really using primarily the MoCA. The MoCA is really much more sensitive for determining our mild cognitive impairment from normal cognition. However, the studies, which included a wide variety of interventions, used the MoCA, the mini mental state exam, the trail making exam, and over 20 other cognitive screening options, which was really interesting. All the studies were randomized controlled trials. Most of them were blinded, which was good. We found that, when we're looking at the census and how big the problem of mild cognitive impairment is, we've got over 117 million people at the 2020 census with mild cognitive impairment, and that number has reached 304 million. Is the expectation by 2050 census. So really widespread problem. What they found when they dug into the articles, they found that the good news is a little bit of everything was helpful. So all these different exercise modalities were beneficial as long as they had two things in common. They had to be consistent. They had to consistently perform it. Those studies that had higher dropout rates were not as successful. And that's not really rocket science, right? And then the other piece was they had to be intense. For each desired activity, it had to have some level of intensity. The higher the intensity, the better the impact. So in general, we know that consistency and intensity are important for a strength training perspective, but also from a cognitive impairment perspective in slowing the effects of cognitive impairment. Those still seem to be true and very valuable. So that being said, across all the interventions groups, there was one clear winner. The combined training group that had both resistance training and aerobic training combined had the greatest effects, specifically on memory improvement. So this study leads me to want to give a few practical tips. So when we're creating our plan of cares with people with mild cognitive impairment, the reality is, depending on our setting, we may have days, we may have weeks. If we're lucky, we may get 2 to 3 months to work with someone. So the reality is this conversation for planning a home exercise program, community-based fitness, needs to start on day one. And then we've got to consider barriers. So the reality is, and the good news is that all of these training modalities were helpful as long as they were consistent and intense. Now, if we could get everyone in the world doing resistance training and aerobic training, combined training consistently, we would love that. But the reality is we work with human beings and they have preferences. They also have limitations. So some things to consider. We start day one. We figure out what's our patient preference. That's number one. what do you actually enjoy doing? The reality is, if we give them a game plan for strength training and aerobic training in a place they don't like, with people that don't look like them, in a place that's not convenient to get to, at a price point they can't afford, they're not going to go. So the reality is, the best home exercise program is the one that's actually going to be completed, right? I mean, the best laid plans with no actual intent to complete them or to follow through is not going to be beneficial for our patients. What we've got to do is we've got to meet them where they are. So the first thing is patient preference. The second piece is convenience. If we're working with someone with mild cognitive impairment, they may or may not be driving. They may or may not have convenient transportation. So we've got to figure out, what times are they awake and willing to exercise? So what do you like? What times are you willing or most likely to exercise? Some people, they say, I'd rather exercise after dinner. But the reality is, if they wait that long, they're not going to do it. Whether they're a morning person or an evening person, we've got to figure out, when are you going to be most likely? Like, when's your prime time? If I could pick any time in the day, when would I choose to exercise? That's going to be convenient for me, where other commitments during the day are not going to be an issue. That convenience piece may be limited by their own transportation or having a caregiver that is available for transportation, which is more likely the case if there's mild cognitive impairment on board. We've got lots of community dwelling older adults that do have mild cognitive impairment on board, and we have some that are already getting some level of assistance in their daily life or getting groceries. So we need to figure out, is there a caregiver available? Are we going to be using something like wheels? Are they going to have to get an Uber ride there? And then if that's the case, what is the financial burden of that? And how many resources do they have available to get connected with some type of group-based fitness that they actually enjoy, or dance class that they enjoy, where they're going to be challenged, whatever that preferred method of exercise is. Sometimes that may lead us down a path of looking at online options. There are tons of really fun YouTube videos that have multiple options, where all you have to do is have the playlist and click play. So it may be having a caregiver set up an environment where they can be safe and starting a YouTube video. And that's it. That could be their home exercise program if you find something they can enjoy. There are things like Zumba Gold that has got standing and seated options, where it can be a different workout every time. There are lots of different free options on YouTube. So if transportation, financial concerns are an issue, as long as they have internet and some type of screen and someone to hit play for them, you can have saved playlists. You can subscribe to YouTube channel for them, and just have the caregiver hit play. That may be a really nice way for someone who has financial constraints, transportation constraints, to still be able to get after it, because we know that it's going to take time. We're thinking of turning months into years if we're trying to slow progression of cognitive impairment. So that's a big thing: consistency, intensity, and we've got to start day one planning. Once we know day one planning, we've got our patients' preferences. We can figure out what's convenient, what's most likely for them to actually execute. Set a plan that is really going to set them up for success based on their transportation, based on financial constraints, caregiver assistance that's available. Yeah, it might be great if we could get them exercising 6 days a week, but maybe the caregiver only has enough margin for 2 or 3 days a week. We've got to meet our patients in the real world with what's actually going to work, what they're actually going to enjoy. If we could have it our way, it would be combined strength and aerobic training, but the reality is we're going to have to filter through what is actually convenient for our patients to execute and based on the resources they have, which for a lot of our older adults are limited and or on fixed incomes. Team, I hope that was helpful. We'll have the DOI for the full article if you want to check that out and dig deep into it in the show notes. If you're looking for more helpful content from us through the older adult division, if you're looking to continue your journey or start your journey in our online courses, level 1 will kick up on March 19th, the 15th for level 2 if you've already had level 1. Madison, Wisconsin, sorry, you're too late. We are booked out, sold out with a waiting list in case someone drops out for this weekend. The next opportunity to catch us live on the road is going to be May 31st and June 1st in Greenville, South Carolina at Onward Greenville. Super sweet spot. Be excited to see you there. We got lots of other opportunities to catch us out on the road or online. Team, I hope that was helpful. Drop any things that you found have been helpful for training those with cognitive impairments, what you found to be effective. Team, have a great day, and we will catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to the MMOA podcast. If you found this helpful, please share with someone that could benefit. And if you're looking for more practical content to help you better serve older adults, head over to www.mmoa.online, where you can learn more about our free resources, our community, continuing education courses, and our certification. Once again, that's www.mmoa.online. Thanks for listening.